What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 5 best great axe builds in New World Aeternum that are optimized for both PvE and PvP. Also, as I will cover a lot of builds, so not to spend too much time, for each setup I will give you a quick overview of its playstyle. Then as well I will explain the best skill tree setup, then what gear should you wear, then even how many attributes should you allocate for each stat and much more. So, moving over to the first build, which is the great axe and the spear. This setup's main focus is on melting down enemies with a lot of HP, as you will be doing crazy amount of damage, especially against bosses and heavy armor users. A lot of players really like this build because they can get great mobility and AoV damage from the great axe, while also having amazing crowd control from the spear. This is for sure the best and most optimized great axe build that any player at any stage of progression can just pick up and play. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice we will go with the light category, as this will give us the perfect balance between damage and survivability. In my opinion, almost all melee builds should wear something above the light category, because as you're required to fight in close range, so being low HP and weak on defense can turn out to be very devastating. However, if you use this build right, then you can turn this disadvantage into a huge strength, so getting in and out of fights and destroying all the enemies that we see. Next we have the attributes, and we should get 350 strength, then 250 dexterity and 50 constitution. But also if you feel like you're too weak, then you can also trade 100 dexterity for 100 constitution. But personally for me, these stats work the best, as we get to do insane amount of damage and still be tough enough to withstand hard enough fights. Then next up we have the skill tree, and this is how it should look like for the great axe. These nodes and the overall layout is structured around increasing AoV damage and having skills to catch running enemies, as most of our damage will come from the great axe, so having great AoV potential is huge. And then again, this is how it should look like for the spear. So this time we built it around CC and quick bursts of damage, as switching between weapons will cost dearly. So then instead we can use the CC and then right away get bunch of damage off quickly. If you are interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. And overall, if you are looking for amazingly fun and high DPS melee build, then here you go. Next up we have the great axe with the void gauntlet. This is mainly a PvP build that uses great axe for mobility and melee damage, while having void gauntlet for the incredible buffs and crowd control to lock down any enemy that tries to run away. What I like most about this setup is that we get self-healing as a melee player, so to be honest, it's pretty hard to kill us, and if anyone tries, then we will destroy him in a few seconds. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice we will go with the medium armor, as this will give us the perfect balance between survivability and damage. This is one of those builds that can only go medium, as light or heavy reduces too much damage or too much defense. As far as our attributes go, we want to get 400 intelligence, 200 constitution, and then put the rest of your leftover points into strength, dexterity and focus. As the great axe is a strength focused weapon, so we will want to use the abyssal gem to convert the intelligence damage to the great axe as well. And then finally we have our skill tree, so let's take a look at the void gauntlet. This setup is pretty similar to the previous builds, just with one or two passive changes. Well, this is how it should look like for the great axe. So we build this weapon around increasing as much AoV damage and mobility as possible. If you're looking for a fun off-meta build, which is very strong in PvP, then here you go. Then for the third build we have the greatsword and the great axe. This setup is very powerful melee bruiser that primarily is intended for destroying any target that crosses your path. This build will have incredible hunting capabilities through the use of the mobility spells. However, it also has a large amount of disruption tools that prevents escape and singles out an enemy, so you can restrict his movement and block his incoming attack. For our playstyle, the majority of burst damage will come from the greatsword, while the great axe will come in very handy for catching and locking down any target. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice we will go with the medium armor, as we want to mix and match between DPS and survivability. Next we have attributes, and we want to get from around 250 to 300 strength, then 350 dexterity and 25 constitution. Similar like for any build, you can sacrifice dexterity for more constitution, but I found that these specific numbers work best to have the best balance between maximum melee DPS, but still being able to be tough enough to withstand serious amount of damage. And then finally we have our skill tree. So let's take a look at the greatsword, and this is what we have. This layout focuses more on getting max crit damage and empowering each one of our next attacks. While then on the other hand we take a look at the great axe, and this is how it should look like. So as I've mentioned, this setup focuses around fixing greatsword weaknesses, which are ranged AoE damage and locking down your targets. If you're interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. Overall, if you're looking for a very fun and strong melee bruiser build, then here it is. Next we have Great Axe with the Warhammer. This is a very old school build, but with just few new changes, it still can be very strong and powerful. The Great Axe with the Warhammer weapon combination is an extremely strong and well balanced setup, which offers really good burst, chasing potential and damage reduction. This build is similar to the Great Axe and the Hatchet in a lot of ways, but in my opinion the peak damage and healing is a bit lower, although it will bring more CC and damage reduction to the table. So moving over to the build, and for our gear we will go either way with the medium or full heavy armor. The choice will depend on your playstyle. So if you want to go full tank, then go with the heavy, or perhaps if you want to mix and match damage with survivability, then go with medium. I personally will choose to go with medium. Next we have the skill tree setup for the Great Axe. So this time I've made it around the best AoE skills that this weapon can offer. This whole setup is one huge AoE damage machine, and these skills for sure are the best in that regard. And then again, this is how it should look like for the Warhammer. So again, we go with strong AoE skills and armor penetration as well. If you are interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. And overall, if you're looking for a very OG but great tank build that can be used both for PvE and PvP, then here it is. And then for the last and final one, we have the Great Axe with the Fire Staff. This is a very unique and off-meta build, in the sense that we are a melee mage caster that depending on the fight will do both, so go into melee and long range. This setup has an amazing mobility from both of the weapons, while also having strong fire burn effects. So let's take a look at our setup. For our weight category, we will go with the light armor, as this build is primarily meant for range and maximum amount of damage. So especially for PvP, we will be kiting and catching low enemy players off guard. And then on top of that, for our weapon to scale with intelligence, on the Great Axe we will use the Abyssal Gem to make this weapon convert from the strength to intelligence. And then finally, let's go over to the skill tree, and this is how it should look like for the Fire Staff. So our skills are built around one of the best mobility skills in the game, while also getting strong and quick fire spells that not only do damage, but apply the burning effect on multiple targets as well. And then again, this is how it should look like for the Great Axe. So this setup is primarily structured around once more increasing our mobility, while also using 2 CC tools that will help us to catch and make the enemy players out of position. Overall, if you're looking for a very fun off-meta build, but which is very strong and fun, then here you go. And then for the last and final part, let's take a look at the best gear, buffs and consumables that pretty much all builds could use. And remember that this is just an example. So as far as armor goes, of course slowly but shortly, you want to get to 725 gear score. And no matter what you choose, light, medium or heavy, always use the opal gem on your gear, and if you can, then try to get these perks like health, refreshing and freedom. Then as far as your weapons go, use also the opal gem on all of your weapons, besides on the last build. As for him, we need to equip the Abyssal Gem to convert the strength damage to intelligence. And for weapon perks, you can try to get Keen, Vicious and Refreshing move. And for your rune choice, you can either way choose the Stalwart Heart rune of the Stone form, or perhaps the Brutal Heart rune of the Detonate. And for your consumables, you should already know what to do. So use Honing Stones for damage increase, use Intelligence Food for plus 40 attribute stats, and don't forget about healing and regen potions, just in case if you get in trouble. And that's about it. So if you enjoyed this video, click like, subscribe and comment. If you are interested in more content, then check out my channel, and I will see you in the next one. So take it easy, peace.